Can you do your warm-up noises?
Pooh, hee, ha, 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 ho. Yee, yee. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
We didn't do our warm-up bit. So 1 to 10. Ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1, 4.
6.
3, 2, 1, 5. Perfect. We're in sync. Welcome, everybody, to Scurvivor Series Episode 2. This is us reviewing Season 45, Episode 2 of Survivor. I'm Ryan Knightsey, and with me, as always, is the beautiful, the lovely Jessie Dubiowski. Jessie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Just all right?
Just all right. Coffee hasn't hit yet, but we're getting into it, and I'll be doing fantastic before you know it.
Yeah, I think you will be doing fantastic before we know it. It's only a matter of time before we figure that out. This episode, I think, was way better than episode 1. I think there was some characters more defined. There was already major character development.
You can't expect much from the first episode. It's the pilot episode. Think of it like the pilot. It's like you're introducing an entire new cast and show, and it's gonna come off like a pilot. You're not gonna get a lot of in-depth information about everybody.
All right, so there was major character development, and I should expect some stuff from episode 1. I think episode 1 was just like a lot of bad gameplay and then like a horrendous tribal council.
They can't really help that.
This is really like the first episode of the season. This was really like, let's get into it.
They could have, knowing what was happening, added anything to that episode that would have been better.
Apparently, as I read after the fact, there were things added to that first episode that they just cut completely because it was useless.
Yeah, well, because some of them were pointless. But I'm saying, like, they kind of did the best with what they were dealt. Because they had a lot riding on these, like, new twists and stuff as the interest for the episode.
Yeah,
But when you have the stars of the episode being the tribe that lost, right? And 2 of them are crying, which, like,
and the whole episode is ultimately leading to one person essentially quitting.
Right. And, like, so all these things that you were expecting to be the highlights of that episode, you can't use anymore.
Yeah.
Because they don't matter.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. It's not really... I think they did the best with what they were handed, to be honest. Because you don't know that that's... Like, they don't know... They've built all these things, like, mini twists into the first episode. But, like, again... They don't really know until, like, they start shooting it that Hannah's going to quit.
That's reality television for you, baby.
So I think they did the best with what they were given.
Yeah, but I think this episode's way better. I think this was a better, like, pilot sort of episode. We sort of get into more of these characters. We see, because of the expanded time length of all these episodes going from an hour to 90 minutes, we got a lot more camp life. And I thought that was useful. We got a lot more like interesting developments in terms of idols and advantages. And like I said, massive character development, which we'll get to. So I guess without further ado, let's get into it.
Do you say without further ado?
Further ado?
Oh.
Further Freddy ado? This was episode 2 of Survivor Season 45, Brought a Bazooka to a Tea Party. Do you recall who said that?
Emily.
Correct.
I wanted to know if we could name this episode Brando's Bando Gets Him the Ladies.
I would say yes if you can change ladies to like something that rhymes with Brando and Bando.
Gets him the...
There's nothing really. I was going to say himbo, but that really describes guys. There's probably a female version of himbo. Uh-oh. My phone went off.
Brando's Bando gets him... Okay, y'all are tasked to help us name this episode.
Brando's Bando.
Brando's Bando gets him the randos.
No, I feel like that's
That
offensive.
is derivative.
Not derivative, but I think it's like offensive.
But it rhymes.
Yeah, we'll come up with something. So post Hannah vote, we're at Lulu. Everyone is still processing Hannah leaving. Sean says that he sees them as the Lululemons, and they need fire. His big thing at the stop of this episode is, we need fire. It's nighttime. We're all cold. We want fire or whatever. We need food to eat, and I want to eat. We need to eat fire. So that obviously involves him needing wins. Emily apologizes for coming hard. She didn't quite realize how hard she was coming at people. Sabaya says she was offended by what Emily was saying and doing. Emily says that she feels gaslit right now.
That's not what gaslighting is, girlfriend.
Because she thought she was being gunned down. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, like... someone telling you, like, I was offended by what you said is not gaslighting you, right? Like, she's not straight up saying, like, you offended me and I did nothing wrong. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, but, like, Emily's perception of what happened is not what happened.
Yeah.
But maybe Sabaya's perception of what happened is also not what happened. But, like, the fact that Sabaya says, I feel this way, and Emily's response is, you're gaslighting me, is like, that's more like you're on the road to gaslighting Sabaya, that like Sabaya doesn't actually feel that way. You're trying to convince a person that they don't feel that way. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, Emily is actually the one doing the gaslighting here in this moment.
It's like they could both be right. You could both be offended because it's your feelings.
Yes.
Sabaya expressing her feelings contrary to what you thought they were doesn't mean that she's gaslighting you.
As much as it upsets you that you were and I think that's also the thing, is that like no one wants to be the bad guy, and I think these terms have given a lot of people who are the bad guys an ability to soften their blows or something, or come more to a defensive.
Well, I just think it's used to a point where, like, I don't think people, because I think there is a lot of like gaslighting in our culture, especially like right now, but
sure,
I think that people don't.
That's what they want you. That's what they want you to think.
Right. I think people use it.
I really like myself for that.
In the right word. It's like, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
But like, the fact that she's baffled that she was offended by Sabaya,
mm-hmm.
and Sabaya says, I felt offended by you. And she's like, that can't be possible because I was the one being attacked. No, you could both be offended by what each other's saying.
Yeah.
You could have both attacked each other.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah, it is acknowledging by saying in this moment that I'm being gaslit or whatever, and what she's ultimately saying is that she's denying. She's true. She has started by saying apologizing for coming hard and attacking people, but then backtracks immediately by basically denying the fact that Sabia says she was offended.
Yeah.
Like she's like, oh, I'm being, and like she's it feels like makes her apology hollow by saying, oh, I was apologizing just to apologize.
Yeah. And it could be that that's what like the editors were trying to do.
True.
That they cut around the context of like, maybe there was more said that made it feel like gaslighting.
But as we do on this show, we only read what's on the page.
Right.
We do not look at anything beyond the pale.
But it's like, if you're going off of that, being told that somebody felt offended by what you said, like, it's not gaslighting.
Sabia and Emily eventually reach an impasse. Sabia says that Emily doesn't understand how she's been coming across to the rest of the tribe. Emily says in an interview that her strategy blew up. Still not entirely sure what her strategy was, episode 1.
Bulldozer. She was like, I couldn't make inroads. You didn't even try to make inroads. You went straight to bulldoze. You said, fuck inroads. That shit. I'm just going to tear them up.
There goes our explicit rating.
Sorry. You can censor me. I love Sabaya's response to like, I can't help how I feel, just like you can't help what you say.
But like that is.
I mean, it's accurate, but it was just so cutting.
It's a very accurate dunk.
It was so cutting. It's so true.
Yeah. That's a very accurate dunk. That's a very good dunk.
I'm here for it.
Moving on to Reba. Next morning at Reba. Reba McEntire. Sifu says Reba is a winning tribe, wants to help his mind, body, and soul by being on this island. Sifu then tells the rest of the tribe that he used to punch trees as a kid, in which their response was, "Man, you're just like an anime person, are you?" And recall,
no, you are like a real life anime.
You're a real life anime. Which again, the thing that he stated in his opening thing that I still think is funny is that you cannot tell that he believes that you can't tell he's into anime.
It's like, dude, no one's judging you for liking anime.
No,
we are judging you for saying that no one can tell.
It's so blatantly obvious. It's incredibly blatantly obvious. J Maya says, we hear a little bit more from J Maya this episode. Not a lot, but a little bit. J Maya wants advantages, so she tries to crack the Reba sign code without the cipher. Of course, that's the cipher that Austin received in his Beware advantage. So she's looking at the sign, she's trying to figure it out. She's working with Drew on it, seeing if they can try to figure out whatever the code says. But they can't quite figure out what it's supposed to be because, again, they don't have the cipher. Who does? Austin. Austin uses the cipher, and he solves it. He puts the cipher up to a specific section of the sign, and it reads, "Dig at the fallen palm tree X." So presumably, wherever his idol is at, it is next to or it is underground at a fallen palm tree. Just a matter of where that is. Back from commercial, at Bello, Bruce makes a fire. Good for him. Jake says, and everyone loves him for this. Jake really loves Bruce. He says they call him Uncle Bruce. He's hilarious. He's I just heard our fans possibly breaking something in the other room.
Quick intermission.
Enjoy,
Ryan, while I go investigate the broken glass.
Our fans are mongrels. I love them. They're just mongrels. Jake says that he calls them Uncle Bruce, says he's hilarious. Later in the episode, I believe Jake said that Bruce has like 25 times the amount of charisma. Like, Jake's in love with Bruce. I believe that is what Jeff described as the new romance on this show. Bruce says that the Uncle Bruce bit and the character is working, but he wants to be a hard ass to his tribe. He wants to go out there and say, "Hey, you got to do this, and before you have all this fun, we got to do this." But he wants to be Uncle Bruce so he can garner favor, and it's seemingly working. Did our cats break everything in the world, Jess? She gets to the microphone.
No, but somehow they got a brass candlestick from the living room all the way to the kitchen, and that's what that noise was.
Interesting.
I don't know. Were they like playing soccer with it or something? I don't know.
Potentially. I was talking about how much the Blue Tribe loves Bruce, unlike Katora, who doesn't really like Bruce's explanations or the Uncle Bruce character. Says that he's been playing up being a celebrity after his first Survivor run, and talking about how like he became like an online meme and becoming like an online meme and meeting all these other Survivor players and whatnot, and how he's becoming a little bit of a celebrity. But according to Katora, she didn't say this, and maybe she should have, but according to Katora, it seems that for Bruce, all of this is going to his head.
Yeah, I'm a little done with.
I don't think you appreciated my joke. For Bruce, all of it's going to his head.
Enjoy this brief intermission while I do
another one. Another one. So what do you think about Bello and Uncle Bruce?
I don't know how. Like, okay, maybe it's because my bullshit meter is like really low. Like I feel like Katura in this. I'm like, dude, let me do one thing.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone. Like, let me do a thing.
You don't like the father Bruce part.
But I think partly because, again, like, we've come back to this, is, like, I'm used to, like, mostly men interjecting themselves and telling me what to do when it's, like, my job to do something.
Yeah.
And so my meter, like my tolerance for that is very low, even if it's like not necessarily in a work setting, even if it's like in a dad mode, my tolerance for it is very low. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, but like I'm with Katora on this, because like and also because he says, I don't want to be Dad Bruce, I want to be cool Uncle Bruce.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to say that means that you know in your heart that you're Dad Bruce, and you're trying to force yourself to be Uncle Bruce, but you're not being Uncle Bruce. You're being Dad Bruce.
Well,
you're like Uncle Bruce that also has kids, so you're still in dad mode.
But I think he has chosen that part of his social game is to put on the character of Uncle Bruce.
But he's not.
No, he says that he is. He says that the Uncle Bruce character is working. Like, so he understands that the Uncle Bruce character is working and that he wants to be more of a hard ass to the rest of these people, and he wants to be Dad Bruce, but he is actively making the choice to be Uncle Bruce for part of his social game. That being said, seemingly Katora is the only one that recognizes and sees through the character and recognizes that Uncle Bruce is just a character, and he's an annoying one at that.
But it's not. Like, because he did this last season, the brief time that he was there. He does take over and, like, that's, I think, what Katora's saying is, Uncle like, he says he's Uncle Bruce, right?
Uncle Bruce is very thin of a character.
And everybody's infatuated with the Uncle Bruce that they don't see that he's actually still Dad Bruce.
Yeah.
And she sees Dad Bruce more than she sees Uncle Bruce. She sees the character. And also...
She sees through the character the actual person.
Because Bruce. He still is micromanaging everybody.
Yep.
And he's like, you know, it's like...
He's huffing his own farts is what he's doing.
Yeah. And that gets old really quick. And I think nobody likes being told what to do or that the thing that they are actively doing to do that. Like, no one likes to be micromanaged.
All it takes is for the Bello tribe to realize what he's doing for it to all go crumbling down. Like it is the Uncle Bruce character is a Jenga tower that Katora is slowly taking away piece by piece. It's just a matter of, will the rest of the Bello tribe help her in that endeavor?
Yeah, I mean, just wait for one person from their tribe to get voted off, and then if he's still there, it'll be a lot more obvious.
Exactly. At Lulu, Emily is looking for advantage. She, of course, feels that her life was on the line the night before, so she needs to look for advantage. Everyone knows what she is doing and also start looking for idols, but they start looking in pairs. Brandon comments that Emily is public enemy number 1. Speaking of pairs, Sabia goes to pair up with Emily, and Emily just says, no, I'm good. I don't really want to pair. You can kind of do your own thing. I'm just going to keep looking for it by myself.
Well, she's like, I know you're babysitting me.
Yeah, she essentially calls out the fact that I know you're babysitting me, and I know that this whole thing is to try to dissuade me from finding something, but I need to be by myself and do these things.
Which, like...
I don't disagree with her.
I think we've been dunking on Emily's social game of, like... I think she is... But she's... This partly comes because she's an analyst, right?
Yeah.
She's so good at, I think, analyzing the situation that is presented to her.
Yeah.
But not how she is involved. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's good at recognizing when people are bullshitting her.
Yes.
And she's good at picking up on what the tribe is doing around her.
Yes.
Like in regards to her. I think it's when it becomes her active role in the situation is where she fails. Or failed initially. She's doing better, as we see in the rest of this episode. She does make strides to try and be better at that. And to be more aware of what her role is in all these situations. But, like, her initial reaction of, oh, you're bullshitting me. I know what you're doing. Yeah. Is spot on. Like, she knows what's happening around her. She just doesn't know how she interacts with all that.
There's something not inevitable. There's something that Color comes across by being the analysis person of a friend group or whatever. It is very easy to fall into the lonely part of it, because analysis for the most part is to step away from something and to look at everything and look at all the thing you're talking about. It's really hard to be very analytical and being very analytical about people and their motivations while also being a part of that.
Yeah, group. It's like she's forgetting to count herself in the data, because she's not completely an outsider. I mean, she is an outsider, but she's involved in these situations, and she's not recognizing her role or like what she's doing and how that's affecting the group or the social situations. But when things are happening or said to her or happening around her, she knows what's going on.
That being said, her hunting idols, I think she should be doing it by herself. There's something. She
shouldn't be doing it by herself?
No, she should be doing it by herself. There's no reason. She understands what's happening here, but also it's like, no, there's been such a thing about this new season about using honesty to convey loyalness and do all this stuff, but it really feels like everyone does that, and I feel like we lose a little bit of that secrecy and lose a little bit of that knowledge is power gimmick that Survivor has. So it's like, no, what Emily is like, I'm already at the chopping block. If I know I'm safe, then I know I'm safe. If everyone knows I'm safe, then they might just vote for me and I have to use my idol and then they'll vote out me next time or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I have to wait. So eventually people look around and Brandon finds the idol. Just kidding. He finds a beware advantage, just like Austin. He, in Brandon fashion, true Brandon fashion, doesn't want it.
To be fair,
doesn't want to play the game, and instead he gives it to Sabaya, and Sabaya accepts the beware advantage.
It's not he doesn't want to play the game. And here's the thing. I think that's my frustration with this current series of Survivor.
New era.
That I think I might like the old ones a little bit. Not taking an idol is playing the game.
Sure.
Because
or in this case, the
Survivor is about making choices, right? Everyone's like it's about taking risks. Yes, it is. It's also about knowing when to not take risks.
True.
And I think if you're the type of person that never takes a risk, I think that's one thing. If you're the person that always takes a risk because you're like, neither of those are really strategy. Those are both passive.
Yeah.
I'm always going to take the risk or I'm never going to take the risk. It's about balancing and like knowing when to take a risk. And I think that like this idea that if someone doesn't take an idol that they're not playing the game, I don't necessarily agree with that.
That's fair.
Because I think that that's part of his strategy is I can't risk my vote right now.
Which is completely fair. And he does explain that he doesn't want to risk his vote and everything.
But and then he also does take the risk later.
True.
So it's like he's making a series of decisions. He's not just always taking the risk.
That's fair. And I think that's a fair rose to give to Brandon.
Not saying that they're always the right decision, but I'm just saying you can't when someone doesn't take the idol, it's not necessarily that they're not playing the game.
I think it's says more about Brandon in the sense of like there is a strategic element that Brandon is playing in terms of risk assessment, and when he should take risks and when he shouldn't. The problem is that he doesn't have the skills to properly back that up. As we will get to.
Oh, Brandon. He seems okay at this point in the episode.
Yes.
He seems to be doing better.
He seems to, both physically and
emotionally. He's got more confidence, it feels like.
I do think.
Like, he's not, and I hate to say it, he's not great. Like, this game was not made for him. But, like, and I'm proud of him. He stuck through that nightmare of a day.
Yeah.
And then Hannah's gone, right? The person he connected with, I feel like, the most in his tribe is gone. And he stuck it through, he made it, 5 days?
Yes.
Yeah, he pushed through, and I think he did a lot better this episode. He seemed to,
I think
be more in it.
I think removing Hannah from the situation allows for less complaining from Brandon. Like, it was his pathway to complain about the game because Hannah was upset about it. It's like when you have someone that hates their job at work, it's very easy to, have constant complaining sessions with them. It's partly a good thing, but it's also you're always focusing on the negative of things.
I would argue that Hannah was complaining and Brandon was venting.
Fair. And I think
he
I
still
agree.
wanted to be there.
I agree.
And he just needed to let it out. And I feel like he was going through a lot and he just needed to let it out. And he had a freaking panic attack and almost passed out in the water. I think he had a valid reason to be complaining, if you will. Hannah was the one who was like, I just want to sleep in a bed, and like I think she like again also valid that like she didn't realize how much it would affect her and that she didn't want to be there, and good for her for like taking herself out of the game and not taking someone else's spot. But I think she was complaining. I think Brandon was more just needed to let it out.
My point there is that I think Brandon in that moment maybe thought that Hannah was also venting, but instead she was truly complaining and truly wanting to leave. In that case, I feel like in that case for Brandon, it became an unhealthy way to vent.
Yeah, like a crutch kind of.
It became a little bit of a crutch to do all these negative things because it was a person that was actually taking the negative things to heart. She
was enabling.
Yes, in a lot of ways. So her being
not putting himself fully into it.
Correct. And I think her being gone has given him that crutch gone and he's been able to step up.
Which I'm not saying that all his problems are gone. Like he might still have anxiety and might still have all these problems. But like he's still able to work through them for a couple more days.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of him. Go Brandon. Well, whoops. Can you cut that out?
No, that's going to duplicate it. Let's do it more.
Can you take that out?
Let's go, Brandon.
No.
Woo! So Sabia gets Brandon's found beware advantage. She opens it up. So that means by having that beware advantage, she loses her vote. Her first task is to take a piece of parchment that has a hole in it.
But let's be real. Sabia doesn't need her vote.
No. It has to take a parchment over the tribe flag. It has a hole in the parchment, and that will give a location to where the idol is. Sabaya does so and goes looking with Brandon. They get to a tree in the forest, and Brandon makes a sort of tabletop, revealing he has scoliosis.
Yeah, steps on the back of the man with scoliosis. Scoliosis. What is he doing?
Just another physical ailment this man has.
But like, why do you just kneel down and go, sure, step on my back? By the way, I've got scoliosis. What?
Yeah.
Try to give her a boost another way. Let her step on your knee or something. What are you doing?
Or do the hand
thing. Do the hand thing. What are you doing, man?
Sabaya can't get anything. They ultimately can't find it. She tells Caleb and Sean about the idol. They look as well, and they can't find it. So there's a idol somewhere on this tree or in this tree, and they can't not find it.
Yeah.
Mr. Scoliosis, another physical ailment.
But also along like telling Caleb and Sean like they make that like 4-person alliance with Lulu. And this is does it really count if you only have 5 people and you make a 4-person alliance and you're also probably going to go to tribal again?
Yeah.
Like a 4-person alliance in a 5-person tribe is not really an alliance.
Yeah.
Because it only works for one more tribal, which you're probably going to. It just seems funny to me when people do that. I'm like, okay, so you make this 4-person alliance knowing that you are actively going to betray that alliance because there's 5 of you.
In theory, yes.
So like, it's kind of a wash of an alliance, in my opinion.
I think also it would have been interesting to see what would happen if Sabia didn't get the beware advantage from Brandon, like instead if he put it back or gave it to like Caleb or something, because Sabia.
Well, but she didn't want Emily to find it, so they had to take it.
True, but my point is,
who could have opened it?
Yes,
you're saying someone different.
Yes, if Caleb was with Brandon and not Sabaya, I think that there's an interesting point there. Just because it's like Sabaya, it really becomes like the connecting point for these 4 people. And this idol hunt becomes the connecting point for this alliance here. And ultimately, as we realize more in this episode, that she is sort of now in control of her tribe. And she's in the leader position. And as a leader position, she is the person that like really doesn't like Emily and really gunning for Emily the entire time. So I would have been interested to see what had happened.
It also is going to be interesting to see like moving forward if Sabaya digs her heels in and like continues that riff with Emily.
Yeah.
Or if she starts to work with Emily, because I think that's where it's going to become a problem. Is like if Sabaya like really digs her heels in and is like, fuck no, I'm not with Emily anymore. that's going to divide their 4-person tribe. Spoiler alert, 4-person tribe. A lot. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm curious to see. I don't think that would be in her best interest to like not work with Emily moving forward.
I agree.
We'll see. I'm curious.
We get some camp life at Reba. Dee reveals that her big toe is massive in comparison to the rest of her toes.
And I honestly thought she was exaggerating.
No, she took her sock off. It was insane. Sifu questions if any of them would be friends in real life, which Julie responds with, maybe with my kids, and she sort of reveals to the interview that she is very much leaned into the mama role of Reba's tribe, and that she is sort of aligning herself with Dee, but she is also trying to align herself with Drew, who ultimately accepts it because, as Julie says, she's trying to align herself with Drew because he reminds her of her son. And so she is playing the mom, and she is trying to kind of baby him a little bit. Drew happily accepts it, and they form a new group, a new alliance on Reba between Julie, Drew, Dee, and Austin.
Interesting.
Julie is the one that kind of forms this alliance, but ultimately as the episode goes on, it feels like they kind of suggesting that Drew has the most power of this alliance, especially since he ultimately wins an advantage. At Lulu, Emily is on the outs, and Caleb is the one that finally connects with her. He actively says that he wants to nurse her to become a better player, that right now she is a bad player, and that he wants her to at least become a better player, a good player, a player that recognizes what they're doing wrong and how they can fix things. Which, to me, this whole thing showcases how great of a strategy and social player that Caleb is.
Yeah, if you can bring the isolated player back into the tribe, or at least like form an alliance and work with the isolated player and like get other people on board, like
they can be insanely loyal to you.
Yeah, but that's also like just a really good strategic game.
Yeah,
like that you can just align yourself with this person and then also convince other people that like, hey, Emily's not so bad anymore.
Yeah, he's using his fantastic...
And she listens to him, too.
And she listened to him. And so he's using his fantastic social game here to potentially further his strategic game moving down the line.
Yeah. But also good for Emily for like swallowing her pride a little bit and being like, you're right, like I do need your help because I'm clearly bulldozing this situation.
Yes, and he goes about it a better way.
And not thinking, he does go about it a great way.
He doesn't go up to her and say, "This is what you're doing wrong. This is how you're screwing up. This is what you need to do."
He's like, "This is where you are at."
Yeah.
And this is like not where you have to be.
And saying phrases, "I want to help you."
Yeah, and like good for her for accepting the help and saying like, you know, like I do need a little bit of help.
Yeah,
recognizing that she clearly doesn't have a full understanding of the situation, but she knows that she's not handling it correctly.
Yeah, she ends up reflecting on her conversation with Caleb. She goes to apologizes with Sabaya. She starts opening up more with everyone else, or at least we get clips of that. She gets very emotional this episode as well. Truly a very humbling moment for Emily. And she really reflects on how much like that first episode really made her way more aggressive than she wants to be even. She was kind of astounded by herself of how much that affected her, and that, you know, how she has to sort of be that way, being a stock analysis in real life, but coming into this episode is like she needs to be like, I still need to be around people and do these things, and I need to be a better person at camp, and I need to just be a better person. And it's truly a humbling moment for her, I think, at this point. And Caleb, it was a good point. Good on Caleb to initiate that.
Yeah, good for Caleb for how he approached it. Good for Emily for accepting it.
Yeah,
and I think that was the start of her turnaround. Like, I really think that like this is gonna be good for her.
Seeing how far this continues, it could do well for Emily. It remains to be seen, but we'll see it. A boat arrives at all the camps. One person is said to go on the boat to go on a journey. This is a thing that's shown up across multiple seasons now. So Drew goes from Reba, Bruce goes from Bello, and Brandon goes from Lulu. Emily really wanted to go because she understood that she was at a disadvantage for everything. But ultimately, they decided that Brandon should go. And Emily makes a comment, sort of like how, she really hoped that she wanted to go. And I think she sort of reflected on the idea that she has made inroads with people, but ultimately she still doesn't have people's trust.
But here's the thing. I think, what do you need more? Because going on this journey that if you get an advantage, you probably have to risk your vote, right?
Yeah.
She can't afford to not have a vote. There's only so far... well, she doesn't know about Sabaya.
Yeah.
But she can't afford to risk her vote.
Yeah.
If she loses this challenge or whatever, doesn't get the reward. Is it in her best interest to leave camp when she's starting to make inroads with people to try and get a reward that, like, I don't know, she's also trying to build trust with people, and, like, there's going to be some distrust when she comes back to camp, no matter what. And I feel like this is more useful time for her to, like, build relationships with them.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't necessarily have to be at the bottom. Yeah. Brandon's going to lose the challenge. Like, she doesn't know that yet, but, like, he's kind of on the bottom.
I think she knows that he's still on the bottom.
Yeah. And I think,
based on his performance in the previous day.
Like, she probably wants to take the risk and have the sure thing of, like, having an advantage, but it's not a sure thing.
Yeah.
She might take the risk and not win. And then she doesn't have a vote, she doesn't have an advantage, and now she's in a worse spot. Now she's an easy target. Yeah.
Plus, she, like you said, by her not having trust yet, no matter what happens, she comes back, people are going, especially Sabia, is going to assume she's lying. Yeah. So, unless she fully honestly tells them that this is what I have. Which, whether or not Emily would have done that, unclear. So Drew mentions that this whole journey thing of Brandon and Bruce, he sees this as a networking opportunity.
Of course it is. What's his major?
I don't know.
Business?
What his major. Yeah, probably. He has a business bro vibe. Bruce, they talk about camp life at everyone's camps. Drew doesn't really explain what happened in his, or at least we don't see that clip. But Bruce says, because this whole thing is from Drew's perspective. Bruce says that his camp is sort of slow at getting up, but they're going well. And Brandon said that he personally had a rough start, but really Emily is the one at the bottom. Really selling Emily at the bottom. Drew really appreciates that Brandon is telling them everything about their camp life, and he's really telling the whole camp dynamic. And he doesn't like that the lack of info that he's getting from Bruce. Yeah. It's just sort of the cold shoulder from Bruce. So he sort of sees that as, like, if Brandon can make it, then, I see this as a networking opportunity. Ultimately, he kind of failed in that networking opportunity, but that's not his choice here.
Do you think, okay, two comments on this situation. One, I love how, at least what they show, is they say get to know each other, and they get to know each other's tribes instead of the actual people. Sure. Of, like, hey, what are you like for later, Just interesting to me how, like, and this might be a dude thing, I don't know, because I don't have much to compare it to of, like, if there were, like, all women groups that, like, did this. But it might be a dude thing of, like, what's going on in your camp? What's going on in your camp? Instead of being, like, getting to know each other. To know how, like, the other person might integrate later into the merge. I don't know. The other thing is, do you think Bruce was vague because he doesn't want to give away information, like he actively doesn't? Or do you think that he knows that he might be part of the problem at camp and he didn't want to let on that? Like, he didn't know how to throw anybody else under the bus? Or do you think he just was trying to be vague as to not give up any information?
Is trying to not give up any information. Okay. I don't think Bruce... I think Bruce thinks he's in charge of the camp and he's perfectly safe because everyone likes Uncle Bruce. Okay. I think that's what he thinks. Yeah. Makes sense. I think so. I think he is just sort of not giving information just to sort of protect that information. So we get to the puzzle for some advantages. You basically are given a bag full of tiles. All those tiles on the back of them have lines. The lines match up to another pair of tiles. So you have to match all the pairs. And once you do all that, you will get 3 extra that don't have matches, that don't have pairs. Flip those 3 tiles over. There's numbers on there. You use that number to get the code to open up a puzzle box, rip open the key, and then your advantage lies inside. Ultimately, Bruce does not play this game. He's not going to risk his vote. He really could have. If he was so confident, maybe there's something there that you were suggesting. That, if he's so confident that Uncle Bruce is in the lead, he really could have, I think. But, it is what it is.
I think he could have. I think you're right. If he's in the position he thinks he is, why not risk your vote?
He did say ultimately that he's bad at puzzles, so maybe that's the thing.
Why.
So then Drew and Brandon play. The big thing here is that they're both working on it. They're pairing up numbers. Brandon, seemingly at least in the edit, gets his numbers done first, and he starts working on the puzzle. And then Drew gets his numbers done second. Drew has different numbers than Brandon. So the question is, one of these people are wrong or both of them is wrong. And of course, they also have a 3-minute sand timer right next to them. So they work on the puzzle. They're working on the puzzle. They're sliding all the numbers around. And ultimately, Drew gets it. Brandon is out of time. So Brandon loses his vote and wins nothing. This is his second puzzle that he felt very confident in.
He did say, in the interview, if I can't do this, I don't belong on the island.
Yes, right before he started doing this and losing. So he loses his vote and wins nothing. Drew also loses his vote, I believe. And I actually don't remember if he loses his vote now.
No, Drew got it.
But I couldn't remember if you also lose your vote.
You only lose your vote if you don't get it.
Perfect. So all he gets is an advantage, which is a safety without...
you risk your vote. You lose your vote, it's you risk your vote.
Good point. So Drew gets a safety without power advantage. I believe that's the first time we hear about this thing. Basically, the advantage is that at Tribal Council, before the vote takes place, Drew can leave the Tribal Council. He won't be able to vote, but he would not be eligible for votes on him. So it is kind of an idle play without voting. And really, ultimately, what the vote comes down to. I think that's interesting. I like that advantage. I have nothing against really that advantage. I think that's a solid one. Back from commercial, at Lulu, Brandon tells them he lost the puzzle challenge, and Sean starts questioning Brandon's strength. Again, Brandon...
Should he have told them he didn't get it? Should he have just said he didn't do it?
In hindsight, yes.
Do you tell your tribe you failed at yet another puzzle?
I think as we sort of learned through this episode that Brandon, despite saying that his strength is puzzles, thinks that he is just unlucky. Which is fair, but three. Ultimately, at the end of the episode, 3 puzzles is not unlucky. That is you bad at it.
Watching him do the puzzle in the end of this episode, he's not good at puzzles, or at least these puzzles. Mm-hmm. It's like...
It is actively bad. Either it's anxiety and everything is stressing him out so much.
The branches need to go this way. It's a tree, and I'm like, oh, Brandon.
It is either that his anxiety and stress are working against him so poorly that it takes out all of his advantage and skill at doing puzzles, or he's just actively bad at puzzles, and despite that, puzzles he still thinks are his strength. And at that point, he's not unlucky. 3 puzzles, you're bad at.
Maybe he's really good at puzzles. Maybe he's just not good under pressure.
That, I think, is apparent.
Because...
I think under pressure is very apparent.
Because, you guys do puzzles, right? In your household. In your family, you do puzzles.
Of course.
That was a probably relaxing thing for you guys.
Except the one time...
No.
There was one time that puzzle wasn't relaxing... and it wasn't the puzzle you gave me for my birthday.
Oh, the Jackson Pollock one with an all-white border?
Yes, that was annoying. It was during the Snowmageddon in Maryland, where it snowed for pretty much all week, and we had no school for a week. My mom and I worked on a puzzle that was essentially sort of like a very zoomed-in picture of like some holly branches. So you have these green leaves, the sort of brown, dark, green sort of sticks, the berries, I guess, of hollies, the red sort of thing. And a lot of it is out of focus because it's a realist, it's an actual picture. That took us all week to do because, again, so much of it is out of focus. And it literally took my mom off and on an entire week to work on. At the end of it, we both looked at each other and said, that puzzle sucked. I can't believe we finished it. And then we had a roaring fireplace next to us, and we looked at each other and said, no other person should do this. And so we both picked up the puzzle and threw it into the fire.
So what's the dialogue like when you guys are doing puzzles?
Quiet.
Exactly.
Focused.
See, so I feel like that's Brandon's idea of he's good at puzzles, right? My family is like a competition at every turn.
Yeah.
And there can be trash talk.
It's
also relaxing, but sometimes when you just get in the groove and somebody else is slowing you down, there's a little bit of like a snarky. We are all competitive. We're born competitors, okay?
Yeah.
And puzzles are relaxing.
Born and bred
to a point,
I'll say.
But sometimes it's relaxing to be really good at puzzles in comparison to other people. So I feel like when I would say, if I went on Survivor and I said, puzzles are my thing, I got this, it's because I'm like ready to show up people doing a puzzle.
And potentially show out.
Yeah. Like, it's because puzzles are a competitive sport.
Yeah.
Yes, they're relaxing and like calming, but they're a competitive sport in my family. So I think Brandon's idea of him being good at puzzles, he might be good at puzzles, but I think like not under pressure.
I think it's more so that Brandon is not good at like outdoorsy sort of athletic sort of things. And so like when it comes to that, he's like, I'm good at puzzles. And I think as a content creator, I don't know what content creator means for him. I'm going to guess video games or things of that nature. Gaming things. I assume he might be like a Twitch person. And they said content creator because they couldn't say Twitch streamer for copyright things. So he probably means he's good at puzzles because he probably plays video games with puzzles in them.
But he also might do puzzles. But I'm saying that there's a very big difference between doing a puzzle as a relaxing activity and being fairly good at it and doing a puzzle under pressure.
Yeah.
And there are people who like the way that their brain works is like actively constantly solving puzzles.
Yeah.
And I think that's the misconception is like he may be good at puzzles, but he's not good under pressure, which means he's not good at puzzles under pressure.
No, and yes.
And so like I think he probably didn't foresee that about himself.
Yeah, he is not good as David Bowie and the guy from Queen.
Freddie Mercury?
Freddie Mercury. I screwed up the joke.
The show's canceled.
I screwed up the joke because I forgot Freddie Mercury's name.
Show is canceled. Ryan doesn't know who Freddie Mercury is.
I'm not even going to finish my joke. We go to Reba. Drew comes back to no one. JK, it's a surprise head rub from his tribe. Doesn't quite understand why they do that. He ultimately thinks that telling the truth is the best thing, so he does that. He tells the entire truth and shows his advantage to his tribe. He explains it and says that, especially after the merge, if we're able to give this to each other, then he thinks that they can protect a Reba person. That would be good. Austin tells Drew privately against everybody else about his Beware advantage. So unlike Drew telling his advantage to everybody, Austin tells his advantage to Drew privately.
Which he opened himself up for that situation really well by like just telling them about his advantage. He's like, okay, you can trust me. And then that leaves room for people to come up to him and be like, okay, I trust you. Here's the thing.
There's a chance that Austin, despite already being kind of an alliance together, there's a chance that Austin would not have shown him or told him about his Beware advantage if Drew did not explicitly tell them about his advantage. So that's ultimately good gameplay by Drew. At Bello, the girls and Brando do the classy female buff t-shirt to sort of form an alliance. The Buffy, Brando, Buffo, whatever you said before. The Brando.
Gets him the ladies.
Yes. Gets them the randos.
No, we're not saying that. That's offensive.
Jake and Bruce talk about which of them is probably going to go home. They really think it's a girls' alliance against them. They really talk about which of them are going to go home. They don't necessarily include Brando as part of him, but they also don't know if they're necessarily considering Brando as part of the girls' alliance. They ultimately say they think it's a girls' alliance, and they're going to go.
Do you think they just forgot about Brando?
These macho men, yes.
Yeah.
Bruce starts talking with Brando because he needs to start working his magic. He starts talking with Brando, talks of Kelly, and sort of creates this other alliance as the boys and Kelly. So Jake, Brando, Bruce, and Kelly. So this means, and this is the first time this season, bringing it back from last time we recorded this show, Kelly and Brando are key parts of two alliances. That means they are in the power position. Of course, the power position being any person that is between two alliances and can work all the angles that they can.
Who was that in the who was that?
A bunch of people were like that. It was flopping back and forth all the time last season.
But there was like a key person on the orange team?
On Ratu? Potentially. I mean, early on, Carson was in the power position, if we recall, and he ultimately decided where that was going to come down to. But yeah, we have people in the power position right now with Kelly and Brando. And I know what you're thinking. There are other people that are potentially in power positions. You could argue Caleb is in a power position.
Yeah, but when it's 4 and 1, I don't think it counts.
I don't count that as a power position. You have to have true alliances formed to get the power position title.
Not everybody but Emily versus Emily.
Yeah. Finally, we get to the immunity challenge of the episode. Bello, and I wrote this down, Bello and Lulu bring their bags to this immunity challenge. Why did they do that? Reba doesn't bring their bags, just Bello and Lulu.
Confident.
Reba seems confident? Is that why it was?
Do you think either they're paranoid because of Matt forgetting to bring his bag to tribal council, or they're like, hey, we've seen the other seasons. This means we might be the season where weird shit happens.
Sure.
So let's just bring our bags to tribal or to the challenge.
There's definitely
and then Reba's just like too confident because they like win all the time, I guess.
It's definitely interesting. I don't really know. Maybe it's because of that. Maybe, but it's also like the second immunity challenge. But maybe you never want to, forget that, or you don't want to take that for granted. It's also interesting at the end of the challenge that they're told to swim home, but they don't swim home with any of their bags. So their bags just go on a boat and then go back with them. Like they swim back and they don't have any of their stuff. So how does that get to them?
I like when Jeff holds the losers back and then it's like, all right, swim home, and they're just like sauntering to the water.
Yeah.
Also, swimming is involved in this challenge.
Yes. So let me describe what this challenge is. So you have to swim.
And that's when I wrote down swimming involved. Lulu's done.
So they have to swim. 3 people are going to swim to a tower, climb that tower's ladder. Swimming on a ladder. Leap off of a platform and smash a tile. The tile is connected to a key and a little bobble. Pick up that key and bobble. Swim again to do a elevated sort of balance beam situation. And once those 3 people complete all of that task, they have 3 keys. The 3 keys are then given to the 2 dry members of their tribes, and those 2 people are going to then solve a puzzle. The reward is fishing gear. So that's huge reward. The fans are clamoring at the door. Huge thing. There's also a new rule for Survivor that's stated. Jeff says that... of course, since there is a different number of tribes members here, that people have to sit out of Reba and Bello. And he says that the new rule this season and moving forward is that you cannot stand out on back-to-back challenges, period.
Is this the Claire rule?
This is apparently the Bush Girl rule, seemingly, which is how we will refer to it. So Sifu and Katora sit out. So basically what that means is last season... especially happened later on when they started separating out the reward challenges and the immunity challenges. But even then, it didn't really matter. You couldn't sit out on if they did a reward challenge in the beginning of the day and an immunity challenge late in the day. If you sit out in the reward challenge, you can't sit out on the immunity challenge. but if you sit on the immunity challenge, but every day it resets. So you could sit out, you could play in the reward challenge, sit out of the immunity challenge, and then the next morning play out of the reward challenge immediately the next day. So you can constantly always have one person sitting out the same a challenge every single time, every single day. And even then, when it's the same challenges over and over again, like it is right now, with the reward and immunity being combined, how it works is they can just sit out challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge, which is what happened with Bush Girl Claire last season. So this new season is that if you that day reset rule is gone. It is just you cannot sit out back to back. So Sifu and Katora out this one, they cannot sit out of the next challenge, which I think that's a bold one. Sifu seems like a strong guy, so that could hurt Reba next round. And Katora, haven't got a full on read on Katora, but that could be hurtful as well to Bello. So that's just something to look at for the next episode.
Well, no, that they're not sitting out of those next challenges.
Correct. You are correct. They're definitely in the next challenges. That's a great point. I confused myself.
It's like if Lulu would have to choose, like say they were sitting someone out. Do we sit out Brandon now because it's a swimming challenge?
Yes.
Or do we sit him out in the next one if it's like a climbing challenge?
Do we sit out Brandon because it's a swimming challenge, or do we sit out Brandon because it's a puzzle challenge? These are the questions we have to ask. So they get to the challenge. Everyone nails the smash first hand. Jake helps Bello take the lead early on by completing the balance beam first. Reba ultimately finishes first.
He does not finish first. He falls.
Jake?
Yeah.
He falls first, but ultimately he's the first person.
I thought Dee was. With that balance toe. She got that balance big toe.
Emily is the first person to complete the balance beam. However, Jake, because he is faster on the balance beam and also can swim faster, I guess, ultimately is the first person that gets to the dock with the puzzle people.
Okay, that's what you're saying. I'm saying he did not finish the balance beam first because, Emily did pretty well, honestly. And Dee had that balance toe.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, after everyone smashes and grabs and swims and runs and balances and all that stuff, Reba finishes first. They get all their 3 keys first and can start working the puzzle. Bella was second, but Kendra takes a very big fall off of a balance beam.
Oh, that looked like it hurt. I wrote down Kendra's going to be on America's Funniest Home Videos.
Oh, jeez. And because of that, ultimately gives Lulu the second place team to get out of the key phase and to start the puzzle phase. So they now have a little bit of advantage. We get to the puzzle. We see that, Bello has Kelly and Brando on the puzzle, the power position people. We have on Reba, we have Julie, and we have Drew, the mother and son team. And then on Lulu, we have Sabaya, all right, solid, and Brandon. Oh, Brandon. His third puzzle. Can he turn things around? No.
Sabaya tried so hard.
No. Ultimately, Brandon sucks on this puzzle. He gets verbally frustrated. Sabaya gets verbally frustrated with him. They started kind of subtly yelling and complaining at each other below whatever lead they had so badly. And as you sort of referenced before, there are moments where Brandon is working on the puzzle and Sean's like really doing his best as a principal to talk to a child. We just have to make sure that the lines and the shape,
He's like, look at the lines of the tree. It's a tree, so they go out from the center. Go out from the center.
And you can see the puzzle that Brandon is working on that he constantly is trying over and over again. The tree is obviously going up like most branches do. And his puzzle, the branches are going to the right.
Like so, perpendicular.
Perpendicular. He's just picking up a piece, putting it next to the puzzle.
He's not looking at what's on the piece as well as the shape of the piece. And again, when you're doing competitive puzzle making, you got to be able to do both at the same time, okay?
He's just picking up a puzzle piece, trying it, and if it doesn't work, putting it back.
And Sabaya's like, oh my God, dude, help me.
Yes.
Help me.
He's like, I am. It's like, no, you're not. And everyone gets actively frustrated. There's a moment where Emily and Caleb and Sean all kind of look at each other like, what the hell is happening here? Why is he... This is so bad. And that's the thing. It's like, That's where I have a little bit of pushback on like a lack of competitive puzzle making stuff or whatever. It is like completely missing key proponents of making a puzzle is looking at the puzzle.
Yeah.
Like it is so aggressively bad that it's like his
but your
anxiety,
brain does weird things under pressure.
I understand that, but it's like
I'm just trying to say that he might be good at puzzles when he's sitting at home alone.
But that's Survivor. What did you expect coming out here? Again, said this last week.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying when he says, "Oh, puzzles are my thing," he might be really good at sitting at home doing a puzzle.
But
he did not account, and we're in agreement. He did not account for the fact that he's not good under pressure when he made that statement. That he apparently all logic leaves his brain when he's under pressure.
But that's my point, is that if he was truly that good at puzzles, even when all logic goes at the brain, you would think that there is some sort of innate puzzle skill in the recesses of his mind that would come out and still be able to accomplish anything. Like, it's just like he can't do it at all. Like, it's looking at it is like looking at someone that's never done a puzzle. And it's like, yes, he could be anxiety-ridden, he could be stress-ridden, and he could not be competitive at all in puzzle making. But if he truly was that great at it, then maybe something would have happened and nothing happened.
What if we just chalk it up to the fact that he didn't bring a hair tie and he couldn't see the puzzle?
I think he's wearing jeans too.
Dude, pull the hair back. Like, I know you got, like, he has... I don't know how his hair looks so clean and, like, voluminous on the island, but it does. But, like, dude, pull the hair back. You can't see a damn thing. He's constantly moving his hair. Like, that's why we put our hair in ponytails when we're doing competitive things, so we can see.
Yeah.
So the hair doesn't get in our way.
Yeah, this guy is...
Like, I get it. You have great hair. Pull it back. Look at the puzzle piece.
Reba wins. Bella gets second. Lulu is awful. Everyone gets their stuff. Lulu, again, this is another loss for Lulu. They have yet to win their Flint, so they are going into day 5 right now, continuing with no Flint. So they're going to go into day 6, day 7, I don't know when the next challenge is going to be, without any fire.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to figure something out. Just smash, at this point, by the way, smash rocks. You got to do something. Because you need to
Brandon was trying to start fire with his glasses, which is possible.
It's possible, but it's such like a Lost Boys sort of like.
But they have no other option.
Lord of the Flies situation there.
At least he's trying something. Science, man. Okay, can we talk about this whole like laborious debate over Emily versus Brandon? Well, I get it.
Should I lay out the context here of the debate? So we get to Lulu. Emily makes it very apparent that it's between her and Brandon. And by saying that, and by apparent, I mean she explicitly says that it's between her and Brandon. So Sean, Caleb, and Sabaya all kind of go off and have a discussion about who should go. The conversation kind of comes down to Brandon is so bad at these challenges that he is ultimately dead weight and we need to cut this guy. However, he is loyal to us and that is another member of our alliance. That being said, if you vote out Emily, you only have 4 people of that alliance left, so you're going to have to vote out somebody anyways. And it's probably going to be Brandon. Emily, the discussion is, we really don't like her, and that's Sabia's main discussion. Caleb and Sean are kind of okay with it. They seem more in line with wanting to win fire and everything, or at least that Sean thing. Caleb, obviously, in this episode, has some inroads with Emily, but it kind of comes down to, we really just don't like Emily, and for Sabia, I don't trust her.
I was going to say, Sabaya's biggest point is I don't trust her. Here's my thing. Let me get up on my little soapbox, right?
She's on soapbox.
I get when the conversation is
that Dawn? Soapbox?
Between trust and loyalty. Like, oh, this person's not great at challenges, but they're really loyal, and we can trust that what they tell us is, like, they give us their word, whatever. That only works when the person you're talking about is not the active reason that you keep losing and don't have fire and your tribe is dwindling. Like,
and are in this position to begin with.
Right. Like with Tika, that was a constant conversation, and I think it was more valid because it wasn't a single one of them. It was the fact that they started out, they lost pretty quickly, they dwindled, and then they were up against two very strong tribes.
Well fed, everything.
So, like, it wasn't like, oh, this person is dragging us down because they're always the reason that we're losing. Right? It's more balanced of a conversation there. Like, you can then balance the person's value of loyalty versus, challenge person is like, because you've had this person, you don't have an active person, like, basically anchoring you to the losing position where, like, that one person being good at challenges isn't as big of a deal. But in this situation, it is a big deal because you need to win and you have one person who's actively anchoring you to the losing position. You have to cut them loose. And yes, you like them. Their social game is good, or you get along with them well.
Yeah.
And you don't trust this other person. But none of that matters if your tribe before the merge is 2 people.
Yeah.
Like, you won't have a tribe anymore.
Yeah.
And, like, you can say Brandon is loyal all you want, but he is the active person that is, like, holding you back. Whereas in, like, Tika, again, it wasn't, like, one person. It was just their situation. So it was more of a valid conversation when they had that conversation versus when now it's like you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If you want fire and you want to not be in the losing position every time, you don't have a choice. You have to trust Emily.
And that being said, even if you vote out Brandon, you're still in the majority alliance, a 3 versus 1. Like, then just vote out Emily next if you lose again.
Yeah.
Like, that it's as simple as that. Or better yet, you'll win and have fire, and then maybe whatever the next reward is.
Yeah.
Which could be, a basket of fruit or something. Or, like, any of the sandwiches stuff that they have. Like, they actively have barely any food. They need fire. They need all this other stuff. You need a win.
Yeah.
Most importantly right now is tribe survival.
Yeah.
And I think and getting rid of someone because you don't trust them versus getting rid of someone because you aren't be able to feed your tribe or stay warm or do all this stuff is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I think Sabaya's dislike of Emily is fully clouding her judgment when it comes to this vote, despite her not having a vote.
Yeah.
And it's just a huge
part of it. That's wild. I think, like, Sean was the one that vocalized it of, like, but we can't get anywhere with Brandon.
Yeah.
We can't take him. It's not like he's, a player we can take with us because we're going to keep losing.
Yeah. So Sean, Caleb, and Sabaya, they sort of mentioned that Sabaya doesn't have a vote, and she should really find her idol so that she can have her vote back. So they go look for the idol so she can get the vote back. I thought this was unnecessary, by the way. She doesn't really need her vote here, as we kind of proved. Is either it is 3 on Brandon or 2-1 on Emily or something.
Maybe they thought that, like, Emily would get desperate and try to find it on her own.
And maybe that's what they thought, but as far as they know, and maybe it's something that will get revealed later on interviews and stuff, but as far as we know in the audience, Emily has no clue where the idol is. And seemingly there also could be more advantages, but as far as we know, Emily has none. She has nothing. They don't know that, and maybe that's what it is. But they at least think that getting Sabia the idol and the vote would be better. Now, there's also another part to this. What are the chances that they wanted to get the idol? I mean, this doesn't even make any sense. What are the chances that Sabia wanted to get the idol just so she can play the idol for Brandon? Or something crazy like that. Despite her own alliance voting for Brandon, she uses an idol to save him, and Emily is the one that goes home. Do you think Sabaya could have been so clouded in her judgment that she makes that sort of move to protect Brandon, waste an idol, and to get Emily out?
I hope not.
Yeah, I think that's so illogical. I don't think that would make any sense in the world. But even then, it's like she's just looking for the idol just to get her vote back. And even then, it's a vote where her vote isn't needed, truly. So I think it's kind of a waste. Sabaya ultimately figures out the puzzle. Sabaya, Sean, and Caleb, I should say, figure out the puzzle. And she gets her idol. JK, it's just sort of another clue. And that is the fact that her idol is actually in a wax candle. And ironically enough, she needs to melt it to get her idol inside. How do you melt a candle? Fire. What do they not have to start a fire? They're flint. So they can't start a fire, which means she can't get her idol, which means Sabaya has no vote until she has no vote until they win. I've never seen a clearer sign of who to vote out than Sabaya is basically being told, you cannot win until you cannot get your idol and vote until you win. And right now, Brandon's not winning.
Yeah. Here's what you do. You take it to tribal, throw it on the coals.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Or you leave it out in the sun and hope that Emily doesn't find it. Or if you don't win next challenge, maybe that there's like a torch or something hanging around the challenge that you could volunteer to sit out and you slip it on in there.
Or what if you take a machete to it? Just kind of hack at it until you get to the idol inside. And
then leave it out in the sun to melt the rest off?
Maybe. I mean, like, you just have to get... It's just inside of it. Melting it is one idea, but there's other ways to maybe get inside that candle.
Yeah.
And maybe it's taking a machete. Emily does a very insanely bold move to earn trust, and that is that she gives her shot in the dark to Sabaya. I wrote down wow in all caps here. So to earn trust and know that I fully trust you and I want to work with you guys, here's my shot in the dark. I obviously will not be playing it tonight, so I trust that you guys won't vote me out, and I hope this is a physical item to show my trust. Sabaya takes it and says, all right, sure. And then privately to Sean says that she's kind of ready to cut Emily anyways. You know, hook, line, and sinker, I believe she says. I have her shot in the dark. It's the easiest thing right now to vote her out. Sabaya really gunning for Emily here. And doing so, she sort of realizes that in conversations with Caleb and Sean, that they're kind of going up to her and being like, well, what do you want to do? And Sabaya says, despite not having a vote, it kind of feels like she is in control of the tribe, and she enjoys that control. So it kind of seems like it's going to her head a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Just like Bruce. Tribal Council. Sabaya is asked about Hannah, and kind of says that her vote was actually going to be for Emily last week, which is kind of a shocker because we both assumed that it would have been for Brandon actually, but it would have actually been, assuming Caleb as well, and maybe Sean would have all voted for Emily last week, and you would also assume Brandon would vote for Emily as well. So Emily would have been going home week 1, but she survived that because Hannah quit. And as we find out in this episode, she survives week 2. So she's making it in by the skin of her teeth. Brandon.
Well, I don't think by the skin of her teeth, I think is not giving enough credit to how much.
So week
Emily,
1 is skin of her teeth.
Yes. Week 2, I think is not giving enough credit to how much Emily has put in to making amends with her tribe.
Correct. I would also say that becomes the question of, are those inroads and everything enough to against Brandon's just piss poor gameplay?
Sorry, Brandon.
To Jeff, the entire Lulu tribe kind of make it clear that it's between Emily and Brandon, and they sort of talk about how they kind of just, it was just like, hey, go off and talk about them. I was kind of upset by, it feels like both Brandon and Emily just kind of resided in the fact that it's them, and they didn't really want to make any moves to try to vote out someone else. Like, these are two people that know that they're in the bottom. Is there any...
And they accept that they're on the bottom.
And they accept that they're on the bottom. Is there any possibility that they could work with a Caleb or maybe a Sean to get out a Sabaya or Caleb or Sean? Is there any world where they could have worked with these people and try to flip it and try to work these things to make sure they save themselves? Maybe. A better strategic player would have done that. But these guys aren't good strategic players, as Caleb has even said about Emily, and have we stated about Brandon. Well, Brandon has a little bit of good strategy in terms of risk assessment, but not in terms of flipping people, seemingly. Granted, they're both in the place of, as a very big uphill climb to try to convince people to keep you after being so annoying, so too clearly bottom people. But a better player would have found a way to flip it. And they just kind of resided in that fact. And I'm kind of upset by, again, the lack of, you stated it when I mentioned to you while we were watching the episode. They just kind of like accepted what was happening. They never went on the attack of trying to save themselves. They just kind of were like, all right, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And everything from there was defensive. Brandon tries to sell himself at good at puzzles despite being bad. And Sabia kind of calls him out on that and says, he says that like, I messed up on the individual puzzle. I messed up on this puzzle. Maybe they're just not my thing. And Sabia says, but you said they were your thing.
So then what is your thing?
Which is kind of what the conversation becomes with Sabia and Brandon is like, but that's the thing. You said they were your thing. So what is your thing? If it's not puzzles, if it's not the challenges, and we're losing challenges, what do you have to offer us? And he never really answers that question because I think Brandon knows his times are, the clock is ticking on him.
Yeah.
Sean and Caleb compliment Emily on turning things around socially. Jeff tells Brandon a little story about him trying out for the JV basketball team, not making it because he can't do a left-handed layup, but ultimately because he was so liked by this team that he is the water boy. So
Jeff was the water boy?
Yeah, so Jeff dubs Brandon the water boy of Lulu.
But what can the water boy offer a tribe?
I wrote down, what's the point of the water boy if you have no fire? So, that kind of leads into the vote, the first vote of the season. Brandon gets voted out unanimously, 3-0. The only votes that matter here are Emily, Caleb, and Sean, and they all vote for Brandon. So that is done. That is written off Brandon time. Any last thoughts about this episode, or any last thoughts about Brandon? Is there anything Brandon could have done differently? I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, and I think I'm proud of him for sticking it out for 5 days or 4 days or how many days?
I think it was 5.
Yeah. And pushing through and, having that realization on the first day of like, this is so much harder than I had let myself believe it would be. Mm-hmm. And like, maybe I'm not fully equipped to do this, but still pushing through and doing your best and like, yeah, I think that he should be proud of the fact that he pushed through.
Yeah.
He did his best. And yeah, it's clearly a game that's not for him, and he can still love it and still be proud of the fact that he made it there.
Yeah.
And made it, not only made it past one tribal, and made it 5 days, and got a chance to live his dream. And I think he should be proud of that.
I think he should. And I think that is... I think that's the only thing you should be proud of. I think his gameplay was really bad this episode.
Well, yeah, but like coming into it and realizing it on day one that like you're not equipped to do this and it's not for you.
Yeah, I think...
But still pushing through and doing his best and trying to do his best with all the time that he had there.
Would you want to see Brandon come back for like an all-star sort of... season, or just like a returning player sort of season? Do you think he has earned the invite? Because ultimately there's something to it of like, maybe he can come back, have a better understanding of his anxiety, get himself in better physical shape, better emotional, mental standard. But at the same time, I almost don't want to put this guy through it again because...
I think, and it seemed like he was satisfied.
Yeah.
He lived his dream. He knew that...
He got on the show.
He knew after a day or two he wasn't going to be the sole survivor. And I think it kind of showed he stopped looking at winning the game and just experiencing it.
Yeah.
I think that's all you can do.
I think somewhere in that first couple days...
Because he doesn't want to quit.
Yeah, I think after this first couple days, he really wanted to be here and really wanted to play the game. But I think at some point, and I don't necessarily know where it was, but I think he really accepts the fact that my time here is over.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's after he risked his vote and he didn't win.
Yeah.
Because, like, had he had an idol, he might have made it further. But, like, I think he knew that this was the point where it's like, okay, it's all about the experience now.
Yeah.
It's all about me making the most of the time I got left here.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately did not work out for him. No. Should he have played a shot in the dark? I don't think so. Who knows? He couldn't because he doesn't have a vote. So he couldn't even do a shot in the dark.
Yeah, because you can't risk what you don't have.
Yeah, so it is what it is. Brandon goes home. A player, I did not enjoy his gameplay, but I can at least, like you said, respect his gunning out for 5 days and doing this experience. That being said, hopefully, Lulu can no longer be the Lulu losers. They can no longer be delusional. They can try to finally get some wins and, more importantly, get their fire.
He's been waiting like a whole day to say that.
Last, before we go to things, so we obviously have our tribe here. So I luckily swapped out Brandon last week's episode, for Kelly. So I didn't lose another player. But our teams, for our Scurvivor Series teams, are, of course, you have Sabaya, Katora, Jake, Drew, Jay, Maya. You did not swap out anyone last week.
No, I should have swapped out Jake. He's going down.
Based on that preview, not looking good for him.
Oh, but, okay, so I hope he's okay and all, but if he gets treated for a medical emergency, I get 10 points. If he's sent home, I get another 15 points.
You really want this guy to just die out here?
No, I hope he's fine. I hope he's okay.
That being said,
I would get 10 points if they called in medical.
My team is Brando, Julie, Kelly, and Caleb. So looking at it, we are all basing this off of the global.tv or globaltv.com, whatever it is. They have that Survivor fantasy pool thing, and that's where they have a giant list of points. Last week I was off a different website, but I didn't understand it, couldn't comprehend it. It didn't make any sense to me. So we found a better one that kind of promotes. It has a lot more points, and it sort of also promotes like a more interesting. When you're doing more interesting stuff for making better television or all this other stuff. Then if you make better television, you get more points, and I kind of like that idea better. Mm-hmm. So last week we had a bunch of points. In a weird way, I actually got more points last week than you did, despite losing someone.
Because you had 2 people cry on TV.
Correctamundo. But now that we have different teams, so according to it, on my team, we'll go first. Brando gets 11 points. So does Julie. So does Kelly.
For this episode?
For this episode, yeah. Correct. And then Caleb just gets 1 point for surviving the week. He didn't really do anything else beyond that. You don't get any points for trying to coach a tribe member to be a better player, sadly. On your team, Jake, Jay, Maya, and Katora all get 11 points. That's basically
I got winners, baby.
All those 11-point peoples are pretty much winning the reward challenge, winning the immunity challenge, which obviously were the same thing, and surviving a week. So they all get 11 points. You also had Sabaya got 16 points because she found an idol. And then Drew gets 21 points because he did a bunch of crap.
I got 70 points this episode. I got winners on my team.
Yes, so this episode you have 70 points. I got 34 points, bringing our grand totals for this season so far as I have 88 points and you have 105.
Yeah.
So that is...
triple digits, baby.
You're the trippy digis.
Trippy digis.
So congratulations for you so far. Episode 2.
I only pick winners.
Like we said, it's looking, Lulu looks to be gutting for some reason. Caleb next episode. Jake actively falling and all this stuff. So there's some concerned medically. Maybe Jake's going to be gone. Jake might get you a bunch of points, but if he goes home, then you lost a person.
And I was going to swap him out.
And you were going to swap him out too. So that remains to be seen. I mean, anyone else on our team? I think Brando's good. I think Julie's in a good alliance. Brando and Kelly are 2 people I have in the power position, so that's a great spot for me. Julie, I think, is in a strong alliance on Reba. And Caleb is the only person that's like weirdly on the outs now with Sabaya, maybe, potentially. Who knows what's happening in that preview. Sabaya is also on your team. Maybe they flip it and throw it on her. Katora, maybe. on Blue.
Oh, that's one thing I meant to say. When Bruce went on that journey, I feel like that was Katura's opportunity to turn the whole tribe against Bruce.
Agreed.
And they didn't show it.
They didn't show anything.
So, like, I don't know if she did, but I feel like that was her opportunity. And I hope she...
They didn't show any camp life of any... I don't believe they showed any camp life of people who weren't on the journey. I think it's just they went to the journey, they did their thing, they came back, and then that was it.
Listen, I know that, like, producers probably think it's boring to not do as much of, like... to do more camp life, but I honestly like...
It sounds like it's more like the studio thing finds it boring. But we'll continue.
But whatever. Whoever thinks it's boring. But I think previous seasons, like, I didn't really connect with as much because, like, I think the whole point is it's a experiment, like social experiment. It's like people living together, interacting together from, like, different walks of life. They get, like, stuck together and they have to work together as a team and, like, strategize against each other too. The challenges are a small part of that.
Yeah.
And I think it started to feel like a sports highlight reel and not like reality television.
Yeah.
You don't really get a lot of character development, which I think is the core part of this show and, like, what they have to argue in the end. And I think that's part of what contributes to the fact that everyone thinks it's the era of big moves. It's like, because that's all they show on TV.
Yeah.
They don't show a lot of the camp life, a lot of the social aspect.
Yeah.
They show the big moves. They show the big blow-ups. They weren't showing a lot of, like, the in-between, which is, I think, where all the hard work is.
Yeah, and I think this season so far, I don't recall where I was in previous seasons, but I think I know every single person on every single tribe, and I know at least something in regards to every single person.
We could go back and listen to our podcast on last season. There, we would get, like, 6 or 7 episodes in and be like, who the frick is this person?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And
podiatrist, Josh.
Yeah. We're like, who the frick is Josh?
He's like, he hasn't been on screen this entire time.
Yeah, and I feel
like I have a clear understanding and clear grasp of everyone and have at least one understand. Jay, Maya, and Julie have been, like, barely on television, but Jay, Maya, understanding that she's obviously a singer, but also she's good at puzzles or is active in trying to do this stuff. So she is aware of these sort of things, and she's actively trying to solve these things.
And I think
Julie put together a strong alliance in Reba, you know? So I think she's good as well.
Yeah. And I think, like, if they don't want people to think that this is all just the era of big moves, part of what contributes to that is showing more camp life, because they're not gonna make an effort. They're not gonna think it's an important part of the game, people watching the show, if you don't, as, like, producers, think that it's an important part of the game.
Yeah.
If you think the only important part of the show is the challenges and the big moves, that's what people are going to prioritize.
I agree.
And then they don't put as much stock into the rest, which I think is equally as important. And then you don't have an audience that's confused to be like, why the frick is this person saying that they're good at this? They're not, but we don't see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Going back to your team, I think Sabaya, unless it gets turned on her, I think she'd be fine. Or if she gets her idol, then she was definitely fine. Katora, unless Bruce somehow flips on her or whatever, I don't really know. I don't really get that vibe. Jake, in the preview, it looks like he might have a medical issue, so maybe he's going home because of that. Other than that, the Girls Alliance doesn't really like Jake. They're going to vote him out, so he might be going home. I think he's on your team, the most likely to go home. Drew seems completely safe. He has an advantage. He's in a strong alliance. And Jay Maya is on the outs of Reba, but I get the impression that they're going to go for Sifu first. MVP. Let's talk about MVP. Who we think was the most valuable player. It should be MVS, most valuable survivor, on this episode. Who do I like? There's something to be said about Emily. Mm-hmm. Still lost and still done all these things, but there's something to be said about Emily. Because she did find a way to survive. There's something to be said about Drew. He was on a winning team. He got the, an advantage. He successfully got an advantage and was on the journey and everything.
There's something you said about Caleb for helping to Emily navigate the turnaround with the tribe.
Yes, if Emily did as well, then there's something to be said as Caleb, who kind of helped her and guided her to doing better. Kelly and Brando in the power position, that's always helpful as well. And of course, they're also on a winning team there as well. Again, how we're going to work this as well is I think we're just going to give whoever we pick an MVP a bonus 5 points.
I think Jeff should get the MVP for creating a puzzle that no one's seen before.
We didn't talk about that, but that is a great new aspect for this show.
Carson, you ruined it for everybody, man.
Yes, Carson seemingly ruined it for everybody. I have an idea for an MVP. Do you have a pick?
So part of me just wants to give it to Kendra to help her recover from that, smattering she took on the ballot speech.
Might be fair.
It has to be a mutual agreement to get the 5 points, right?
I think what we should do is we will both say name at the same time. Whatever name we say gets a bonus 5 points, and if we say the same name, then that person gets 10 points. Is that fair?
Sure.
And these people are obviously not necessarily on our team. We're just thinking holistically as across the entire episode.
Can Dee's toe get an MVP award?
If you think it deserves it, that'll only be 1/20th. She gets 1/20th of 5 points in that case, or 10 points, because only her toe gets it, or 2/20ths, 1/10 maybe. But I have an idea on MVP. If you have a pick,
I do too.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Drew.
Emily.
Oh, why do you say Emily?
I think that she is definitely most improved. I think that her willingness to turn this ship around was invaluable to her tribe in making it possible for them to choose Brandon.
True. That's fair. They made it and a unanimous vote made it very clear that they were going for one Brandon.
I think that had Emily not made strides, it would have been a bigger decision, especially for Sabaya. And I think that Emily being willing to be a team player and to try and make amends definitely helped solidify the fact that Brandon was going home. And
I think that's all fair. I think that's all fair. I went with Drew because similarly, I voted on Austin last week. He successfully went on a journey and got himself an advantage and learned more about the Lulu tribe in the process. He, with Julie, and I would say more Julie, but with Julie, was able to be in the Power Alliance on Reba. He won the Reward and Immunity Challenge of his tribe. And he ultimately also was able to find out that Austin also has an advantage and has a further strength bond. So he, I think, had a fantastic episode in terms of great gameplay.
Sure, I'll take your 5 points.
Yeah, ultimately, what I just did is give you more points. So Drew now has 26 points.
I could have voted for my own player, but I didn't. Mostly because my gut said Emily. So. And
that's fine. I want this to go through your gut. And maybe we should definitely do that before we read the point totals and everything.
Yeah.
So that makes you have Drew has 26 points. That makes you have 76 points this episode. 76 points.
75.
75 points, yes. And your points to date are now...
I'll take 76.
No, and your points to date are now...
You guys heard it. 76 points.
76 trombones. That's what I was thinking of.
76 trombones.
110 points is what you have versus my 88. So it is only a difference of 32? 28. 20? 30? 22? 22. 22?
How many points do I have?
110. I believe it's a 22-point difference.
And you have 88?
Yeah, I believe. So it's still kind of anybody's game. If
yeah, but I came back from being how many behind?
Like 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of still anybody's game. It's only going to get worse and harder for me by having 4 people versus your 5. But if one of your people go home this next episode, that'd be better for me.
You mean if Jake goes home?
Yeah. Well, we've been going for over the length of the episode itself, so let's close out here. What have you been enjoying in this past week, Jessie? What have you done or anything that you've been listening to, watching, working on that you've kind of enjoyed in this past week?
When did we record? Monday? I've been working.
I've been working.
I've decided I'm going to learn how to sew pillow covers.
You've decided that?
Yeah. Because that's fun. And I have a hoard of fabric at work that I'm not allowed to buy until I make something. I'm really just really into Thundercat Radio on Spotify.
Yes. I'm so happy that you said that.
So we had a volunteer in, and he was like, I was like, we need some music. Like, do you have any preferences? He's like, no. And I was like, okay, I've been playing Thundercat Radio recently. And he's like, who's that? And I was like, or they were like, describe his music. And I was like, I can't.
Funky soul?
I was like, you just need to listen to it. And then I played it, and he was like, oh, I love this. And the thing about Thundercat Radio, at least on the YouTube music, which we don't use anymore, we use Spotify, was you get a lot of everything on there.
Sure.
Which is nice.
Spotify has a new feature where you can do smart playlists, where it would take a playlist of music and filter in similar sound, similar genre stuff.
Isn't that what the radio was supposed to be?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that is?
Seemingly. But the radio is still a curated playlist.
Sure.
So there's that.
That's true. What is your plugs?
I don't really got any plugs. I think I'm just going to say I appreciate strong unions. I am very happy that the writers have gotten a deal.
Oh, yeah.
And by the time we recorded, they got a very, very great deal. I'm very excited. And as of we're recording this on Friday. This is the third day of the SAG negotiations for the actors.
They've already scheduled for Monday,
and they also scheduled for Monday. I thought it was very interesting that they scheduled Friday and Monday as the next time. They knew that today was not going to be enough, and then they'll have to come back to Monday. So
it might be a good reason. It might be they have a lot of fine print to go over.
I read that as good rather than bad, only because if it was bad, why would you schedule 2 days? Unless it was really bad. It feels
like they had a lot of fine print to work out, and they knew that they would have a couple rounds back and forth.
Yes, that's how I'm also hopefully reading it. Knock on wood, of course. But, obviously I'm very happy that the writers are working on it. The studio heads are basically working directly with the unions. They're kind of putting the AMPTP aside and working directly with the actors to get better things for the actors. I think if the actors can get a strong deal as well coming out on Monday, and then we have these strikes over, our jobs can come back around, and I am obviously very, very hopeful and excited about that.
That would be very nice.
That'd be very nice, both in terms of my sanity and my financial woes. But yeah, so I'm very happy, and great strong unions. There's no reason to not have a union. There's no reason not have a strong union because that is realistically, unions are the only ways that workers can make sure that we don't get in the situation we're in now where the one percenters have a crap ton of money. If you want to make sure those one percenters don't have a crap ton of money, unionize and make sure you get your money.
It's also have a crap ton of money on the backs of people doing the work for them that aren't getting paid a fair wage.
Exactly. So if you want to...
they're profiting so much off of people working for so little.
And if you want to make sure that you can... What's the best way to stop that? It is to unionize and to have a strong union that can to ensure that you get paid properly. Because that's the thing that's going to happen with all these studios. We're kind of already seeing ramifications of that. These streaming services upping their prices and locking down on password sharing and doing all these different things. We're already seeing ramifications of the writer's strike and their deal. We're already seeing those sort of things. So. Yeah, what that means is these deals hurt the bottom line of these major industries. If you think have too much power and control and too much money, unionize, baby. That's what you gotta do. So I'm all about it right now, and I appreciate the writers and hopefully the actors getting a great deal. But hopefully I didn't jinx anything. and hopefully they get a good deal coming out of it.
Knock on wood, please. Thank you.
Knock on wood. Thank you, Beanie. That is it for this week's episode of Scurvivor series. Never do that again. How dare you, young lady. I should say this at the top of the episode to make sure we get that plug in and people don't skip out when they are listening back to the episode. But we do just want to say, if you have any emails or anything and you want to contact us, any email question, thoughts about what we talked about, or thoughts about next episode, or any thoughts at all, you can email us at scurvivorseries@gmail.com. And of course, that is SCURVIVOR series@gmail.com. I do not remember at all the little joke we made last week. Do you remember the song?
VIVOR.
I know. SCUR.
I don't remember. I just know VIVOR.
That's what it is. SCURVIVOR. SCUR.
We sound so corporate with a jingle.
SCURVIVOR series@gmail.com. Again, scurvivorseries@gmail.com.
Fuck corporate.
Again, the explicit rating. I don't think I cursed once this entire episode. And
you can censor me.
And you said the F word, I think, 4 times.
No, I said frickin'.
That's the F word.
That's not.
That is a F word.
Frickin'.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.